What is Keynesian? Keynesian is one of the most influential schools of economics thought is the Keynesian system. The school was established in 1936 with the publication of John Maynard Keynes, The General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money, and it continues to be a major force in orthodox economics today. It came from the neoclassical school with Keynes himself being a Marxian scholar. Keynes used many of the postulates and techniques of neoclassical economy, which he lumped together with Ricardian doctrine under the heading of classical economics. His method was based on subjective, physiological approach and was infused with marginalist theories such as static equilibrium economics. Keynes distanced himself from critique of neoclassical value and distribution theory. The historical background of the Keynesian school, the Great Depression of the 1930s, the worst the Western world had ever since, gave further impetus to theories. His theories, however, can be tracked back to before 1929. Because of the expansion of large-scale industrial development and trade, the economy has become more vulnerable to statistical calculation and regulation, making the inductive aggregate method more feasible than in the past. In reality, as the public desire for the government to effectively feed unemployment increased, this approach became increasingly necessary. The widespread fear of secular stagnation or a slower rate of growth influenced Keynes' thought. After World War I, the major private enterprise economy of the Western world were less vigorous than they had been before. There seemed to be no more space for geographic expansion. Productivity seemed to outrun demand as income and saving rose. And there were no new development like steam engine, railroad, electricity, or car to encourage new vast capital investment. In addition, the lack of robust market competition slowed the replacement of old equipment with newer and improved machines, and the economy was weighed down because depreciation funds from the previous investment were not invested fast enough. Following the start of the Great Depression in the early 1930s, many economists in the United States called for policies that would later be referred to as Keynesian. It's worth noting that these policies were proposed prior to the publication of John Maynard Keynes' The General Theory. Leading economists both within and outside the field advocated for public works project, federal government deficit budget, and credit increasing through the Federal Reserve System. Increased government expenditure could have a multiple impact on overall spending and wages, according to many economists. Wages were seen as both a source of demand for goods and a cost of production, and wage cuts were widely criticized as having no real solution to unemployment. These theories were developed independently of Keynes and were widely debated in the United States. Keynes, on the other hand, offered the theoretical structure that brought this concept together and started the Keynesian revolution in economics.
Today, I will present about the main principle of Keynesian school. Okay, number one, macroeconomic basis. Keynes and his followers concerns themselves with the determinants, such as of the total or aggregate amount of consumption, saving, income, output, and employment. Okay, they were less interested, for example, how an individual firms decide on its profit maximizing level of employment than in the relationship between the total spending in the economy and the aggregate of such employment decision. Okay, number two, demand orientation. Keynesian economists stressed the importance of effective demand, or it's called aggregate expenditure. Okay, such as the immediate determinant of national income, output, and the employment. Aggregate expenditure said this economies consists of the sum of consumption, investment, government, and non-export spending. It also firm collectivity produce a level of real output that they expect to sell, but sometimes aggregate expenditure is insufficient to buy all the output produced, as unsold goods accumulated from lay off workers and cut back output. That is effective demand establishes the economic actual, which in some cases is less than the level of output that would exist if there were full employment or potential employment. Okay, number 3, stability in the economy. According to Keynesian, the economy is given to recurring booms and busts because the level of planned investment spending is erratic. Changes in investment plan causes national income and output to change by amounts greater than the initial changes in investment. Investment spending is determined jointly by the rate of interest and the marginal efficiency of capital, or the expected rate of return above the cost on new investment. Okay, thirdly, wage and price rigidity. Keynesian pointed out that wages tend to be inflexible downward because of such institutional factors as union contract, minimum wage law, and implicit contract. So, deflation occurs only under condition of extremely severe depression. Okay, the last one is active fiscal and monetary policy. Okay, Keynesian economists advocated that the government should intervene actively through appropriate fiscal and monetary policy to promote full employment, price stability, and economic growth. For example, to combat recession or depression, government should either increase spending or reduce taxes. The latter increase private consumption spending. It also should increase the money supply to drive down interest rate in the hope that it will be bolster investment spending. Thank you.
I will present about contribution of the Keynesian school. We have 5 the contribution of Keynesian school. That is the first is consumption function, investment, liquidity, preference, equilibrium income and employment, and the last is policies to promote full employment and stability. Okay, before that we must know that Keynes' reputation at Cambridge was quite different. He is the most brilliant student at Marshall and fellow economist. He published the economic consequence of the peace, and after publication Keynes resigned his lecture but stayed on as a fellow of King's College. Okay, so let's start with 5 contributions of Keynesian school. Okay, for the first is consumption function. Keynes points to a fundamental psychology law that is concerning to the relationship between consumption and income. There is positive functional relationship between consumption and national income. Second contribution is investment. In investment, Keynes defined economic investment as the purchase of capital goods. Financial investment, not investment in the Keynesian sense because it does not directly represent purchase of capital goods. Okay, the third contribution is liquidity preference. Depend on 3 motives for holding money and the reluctance to part it, except insofar as the rate of interest acts as an effective investment. Okay, the first is the transaction motive, second is precautionary motive, and the third is speculative motive. Okay, transaction motive is the need for cash to pay for current purchase, for consumption and business need. Okay, precautionary motive is the desire to keep some cash on hand for unforeseen emergencies, and the last is speculative motive, the desire to hold cash while waiting for interest rate to rise or stock and bond price to fall or the general price level to fall. Okay, fourth contribution is equilibrium income and employment. Large investment in lever saving capital, for example, can cause real domestic output and national income to rise more rapidly than employment. If we ignore the government and international trade, the immediately determinant of income and employment are consumption and investment spending. Okay, the last contribution is policies to promote full employment and stability. The government should stimulate private investment during a depression by forcing down the rate of interest, which could accomplish to a central bank policy. A private enterprise economy may have difficulty maintaining adequate private investment.
I'll talk about the founder of the Keynesian school. Keynesian economy is an economic theory of total spending in the economy and its effect and output by John Maynard Keynes. So now we know who is the founder of the Keynesian school. That was John Maynard Keynes. John Maynard Keynes from 1841. He was the son of eminently intellectual parents. His father is John Neville Keynes, an outstanding logician and political economic. Then his mother, who was interested in public affairs and social work, was a justice of the peace and alderwoman and mayor of Cambridge. At Cambridge, his teacher Marshall and Pigott recognized his brilliance. When John Maynard Keynes, at 23 years old, who is regarded as the founder of modern macroeconomics of employment, interest and money, was published in 1936, but its 1930 precursor, a strategy, is often regarded as more important to economic thought. Keynes' treatise created a dynamic that converted economics into a study of the flow of incomes and expenditure. He opened up new vistas for economic analysis. Keynes was an important figure both in the world of practical affairs and academic life. Chairman of the board of a life insurance company, he served as director to other companies, and he was a governing body of the Bank of England. Keynes was a representative of the British Treasury at the Peace Conference after World War I, with power to speak for the Chancellor of the Exchequer. His experience and his strong opposition to the peace settlement in 1919 tried the polemical the economic consequence of the peace. He remembered the lesson for Brussels from the Great Depression when he led the British delegation at the 1944 Bretton Woods Conference, which set down rules to ensure the stability of the international financial system and the rebuilding of nations devastated by World War II. Henry Dexter White, U.S. Treasury official, that Keynes is considered a monetary fund and money and World Bank, which were created at the Bretton Woods. So that's all from me. Thank you.
The conclusion of the Keynesian school has some criticism, which Keynes' shotgun static thinking led him to exaggerate the trend toward secular stagnation. He thought the profitability of new investment would decline as the most profitable projects were undertaken first, leaving less attractive projects for later exploitation. Keynes underestimated the possibility of technological change and the new capital investment it was stimulated. Keynes was narrowly provisioned with respect to both space and time. She seemed to think that unemployment might have become a problem in Asian aging. Keynes also can be criticized for his too ready acceptance of wasteful government spending. He preferred that the state finances useful rather than useless projects. He recognized that the business community might condemn useful public work if then competed with private enterprise. Keynes was sympathetic toward private wasteful consumption spending as well as public waste. He defended beneath the medieval the fable of the beast or private price, which told of the appalling line of a prosperous community then suddenly abandoned luxuriant living and amusement in interest of saving. Some theory Keynes which used until now first equilibrium income and employment, Y equal consumption plus investment, and saving equal investment, which Keynes assumed that there is a high correlation between national income and the level of employment. Second, the Philip curve, The pillar curve learn the possibility of permission, inflation or inflation that would occur before the economy reached high full employment. Pillar curve as a one most important concept of our time.